planning sheet, I know yours looks a little bit different than mine because I gave you the whole thing. What would you do for antecedent manipulations, replacement behavior teaching, and consequence modifications if you got this BIP that attended with this child? And you know it's against the law to kick a kid out of school now. That state didn't. They do now. I know I heard some really great ideas walking around. One of the things she asked, and I can't see your name, Linda, asked, could the child stand up? And that's a very good suggestion for all the kids who have ADHD issues. At the alternative school, I have an alternative school that I go hang out at once a month just because I miss those kids. I really like working with emotional behavior disorders, and so I go hang out once a month at a school, and the principal ordered one of these for every class. And it's a standing workstation because these kids are older. Little kids, you can go get a 6th grade desk and raise it up, or you can go over to the desk graveyard and find one as big as you can and raise it up. But a lot of the new desks are coming in that aren't adjustable at all, which is not right because no two kids are the same height or size. But these are just standing, and they weren't very expensive, but it's really nice, and every classroom has one, and the kids have permission to go there as long as no one else is there. So it's not like this is only for Johnny, this is only for Susie. You feel like standing up, you can go here. And so just having those different places that kids could go, and she wanted to know what it looked like, and I knew I had a picture of it somewhere. Some of the other ADHD tips and techniques that I think I shared with you last time, just all the air-filled cushions. I know I shared that with you. Being able to sit on an air-filled cushion provides that proprioceptive input, that side-to-side movement. IKEA also sells these little foam cushions. Well, if you live close to IKEA, that's great. If you don't, not so great. What I found worked just as well are the kneeling pads for the garden, and our dollar stores carry those. So for $1, you can get a cushion for kids to sit on, and it just makes that chair a little bit more comfortable. You all know how uncomfortable it is if you have a faculty meeting and you have to sit on the dots in the cafeteria that are built for children, and you're supposed to sit on this now for 8 hours through a some kind of in-service or something. You know how miserable it is for you. Nobody ever said sitting on a hardwood or plastic chair was best for kids. But in America, that's what all kids sit on. I go to Iceland and I go to Australia to do trainings, and I visit classrooms. And in Iceland, the kids don't sit on hardwood or plastic chairs. They sit on bar stools. And the bar stools are padded, very thickly padded. They're not training them to be good drinkers. They're bar stools. They've got a nice barrel-shaped back. They swivel. There's a place for their feet so that they can kick and swing their feet. And all kids in Iceland are barefoot, so they can wiggle their toes. Not for that reason. Everybody in Iceland just walks around barefoot because they trudge through snow and rock and all that to get there. And the teachers are barefoot, or they have socks on. No one wears shoes. I mean, I sort of felt out of place walking around with shoes on, but I'm not so keen on taking my shoes off. I would have if it would have been seen as rude. But I read a research article that said if kids can take their shoes off and wiggle their toes, it decreases anxiety by 39%. You know, the same as being able to scribble. So that's pretty cool. All the kids in Australia were barefoot.
Why can't they wiggle their toes with their shoes on?
Well, I can't wiggle my toes with my shoe. I mean, a little bit, but it's kind of constricting. You know, I know a lot of adults don't like the idea of kids being barefoot. In Alabama, they figured out a way to get free cushions for kids. They got a business to donate stadium cushions. That one side said Capital Savings, and the other side said the name of the school district, and every kid has a cushion to sit on. So it really makes a difference if the kids can move. Having 2 desks, permission to move, these are all things that could have been put in place for Otter. Having 2 desks and permission to move from desk A to desk B. the standing workstation, sending them on an errand. When you see that Otter's about to lose it and that 13th Mentos is on the top of the Diet Coke and about to fall in and splash all over the place, send them on an errand. I used to have a whole bunch of fake errands that I could send kids on. I had books that needed to go back to the library. I had fake reports to go down to the office. I would rather Otter miss 3 minutes running something somewhere for me and getting that proprioceptive input than have everybody miss 20 minutes because I'll let that 13th Mentos drop down in the Diet Coke and spill all over the classroom. So any of these non-medicated interventions for ADHD, and I know that this happens to you guys because it happens everywhere in America. The minute somebody finds out a kid is also diagnosed with ADHD, they think medication, 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 and they think that's the only answer. And I know some kids, the medication makes them worse. Are you prepared for that? So I always say, before we even think about medication, one, we don't have the right to request that a kid be put on medication, and I don't think I'm qualified to make that diagnosis, and I don't think anybody else is either. Let's try all these non-medicated interventions. I have a whole book on my website for non-medicated interventions for kids with ADHD, and it's a free book. I used to put my kids with ADHD on a token economy, 5 tickets. I just had little red carnival tickets. When they got 5 tickets, they could rent my chair. My chair I never sat in during the day. Mine swiveled. It had a little bit of padding, and it also had wheels. So that was they were excited. I had 5 kids who were ADHD and non-medicated. For 10 tickets, you could rent my chair and my desk. I never used my desk during the day. It made me keep my desk cleared off, which was a good thing. Because normally your desk just becomes the receptacle for everything that's in your mailbox that people are trying to sell you. And for 15 tickets, they could rent the science table or the reading table, depending on what grade level that I was working with. All my kids had different things going. And what people throw out at me when I say stuff like this is, won't the other kids in the classroom be jealous that this kid gets to sit in your chair or sit in your desk or all that? And here's my answer, and this is honest to goodness what I did as a classroom teacher. Every year on the first day of school, I said, boys and girls, your job is to come here and learn from your mistakes. Like when you were in kindergarten, you might have thought that 2 + 2 was 5. But then you learned that 2 + 2 was 4. And you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Your job is to learn from those mistakes. My job is to figure out how to help you be the best learner you can be. So I'm going to be looking and thinking of things that might help you. So you might see some kids counting with blocks. You might see some kids writing their spelling words in a bucket of sand. You might see some kids, getting tickets from me. Your job is not to look at that and go, hey, that's not fair, I want some sand. Your job is to look at that and think, would that help me be a better learner? And if you think that will help you be a better learner, you come talk to me and we'll talk about it. I never had a single kid say, that's not fair. How come that kid gets this? How come that kid gets that? They would come up every once in a while and say, I think I'd be a better learner if, and I would let them try it. And what they usually found out was it was a lot more work to count with blocks or to do, and they, it would go away quickly.
The problem with that is that unless if you're dealing with older deaf kids, I can see that rationale, but the younger ones, they don't have the language or that they would not understand that concept. Like you saying.
You have to change the wording a little bit, but I had 5-year-olds that got it.
5-year-olds have so much more language than a hearing 5-year-old to process
Yeah.
that a 5-year-old deaf kid could.
Yeah.
I'm saying fairness is such a big deal for those kids, and they don't.
I don't know, because my interpreter always interpreted it. Why? No.
For the little kids, I'm saying, I don't.
Yeah.
You have to try to.
Because I said it every year I taught. So.
I teach early childhood through 2nd grade, and I always use Raven's line, which is if they ask, why does he get 3 stamps and I only get 1? Because he needs it. And that's like what Raven always says, because he needs it. And I have never had a kid.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yep. And then that's it. So
I, honest to goodness, had kids come running up to me and say, Miss Riffle, he didn't do this, you should give him a ticket. Miss Riffle, he did this, you should give him. They became police officers for good behavior. Okay. It's lunchtime.